What's going on, y'all? Onward Cars back here again with another car review, and this time it's another special one because I have the king of all sedans, the super sedan itself, one of the first daily sedans to be powered by a high revving V10, the E60 M5 in a beautiful Interlagos blue. So a brief history about the M5. The M5 is BMW's super sedan. It is the fastest, sportiest sedan they make. Well, aside from now the Grand Coupe 6 Series. But this is what started it all. Early M5s had the straight 6. E39 M5, which popularized the M5 name around the world, had a V8. And this, its successor, a 5-liter V10. Now what makes this V10 so special is the fact that BMW never made a V10 before this engine and after this engine. It's the only V10 BMW made and ever will make. Another thing that makes it so special is how high it revs. It can rev all the way up to 8250 RPM from a 5-liter V10. Imagine how much mass is moving at that and the speed it's moving at to get 8200 RPM. Insane. This car specifically is a 2006 model, and I know what you guys are thinking. You guys are thinking, Anwar, this is actually the most unreliable car ever produced. And I would say you're probably right. But that doesn't mean it's not one of the most capable cars ever made. Jeremy Clarkson said it best. He said it's the best and worst car ever made. Now, when this 5 Series design first came out, people did not appreciate it at all. It comes from the Bengal design era, and if you guys aren't familiar, Chris Bengal is the chief design head at BMW at the time of this car. And he's famous for his 7 Series, which has the famous Bengal butt, which can kind of be seen in the 6 Series as well. In my M6, it's very prominent. 5 Series, not so much. 5 Series is much more tame design, which is why I think it aged so well and why I think it gets so much more praise than the M6, is because of how sedated it is. It aged so well, honestly. This car honestly came from the time where BMW wasn't going crazy with styling. What they were focused on was engineering, performance, and overall driving feel and ability. I drove this car for a little bit before starting this review, and what surprised me the most was how smooth it was. My M6 has a lot of upgrades compared to this. This is completely stock, but it feels completely different. I'm guessing the clutch on my M6 is starting to go out a little bit because it doesn't grab as early as this one, but this one just feels a lot more refined and smoother. And it's crazy because the 6 Series was actually supposed to be the more refined version, right? The 6 Series was an upgrade to the 5 Series, but for example, mine, which has 115,000 miles at this point, I just got back from a long road trip to Miami and back, 4,000 miles, but it just doesn't feel as well put together as this car. This car only has 45,000 miles. Many people weren't fans of how this car grew compared to the E39 M5 either. This car grew in length and width, as well as weight. Power went up, but it really deterred people from this car. They just didn't feel like the 5 Series should be this big of a car. And it's funny saying that now because the 3 Series is this size, but back then people weren't a fan. In my honest opinion though, the M6 and the M5 with the S85 engine are both going to go down in history as BMW greats. These are the king of all M cars in terms of displacement, theater, excitement. The single clutch, when it's turned all the way up, when you're in S6 mode, DSC off, car shifts like an Aventador. I'm telling you, people don't believe me until they get in it, then they're scared it's broken. I'm like, no, that's just how it is. This car was famously driven by Sabine around the Nürburgring, and this was the ring taxi. She would give people rides in the car. They would ride 4 deep and keep up with exotics on the Nürburgring. That's how fast this car is. There are many differences between this and the standard 5 Series besides the engine. One is the fact that this has a completely different body. It has the famous M front bumper, the side fender vents, the side skirts, these style 166 wheels, which are actually made by BBS. Very nice. And the quad tips, as well as this diffuser that was designed specifically to draw heat away from the rear diff. But as you can see, this car is very clean. It is a prime spec. This car is Interlagos blue on black with the aluminum trim. Aluminum trim looks so good in these M5s. No matter what color spec you get in terms of the interior, as long as you have aluminum trim, it's gonna look dope. Now I know that you guys are thinking that this car, though it may be great, just has tons of problems. And you wouldn't be wrong. The owner, Chris, has told me that he's had to do a lot of little things here and there to get it ready for sale. He's actually gonna list it on Bring a Trailer pretty soon, so I'm sure it'll bring big money. But a lot of little electronic issues. He said he fixed most of the issues by changing the battery. This is a 2006 with low miles, so you're gonna have a lot of little gremlins you gotta chase. This car right now is a steal. Brand new, these were upwards of 80 grand. Almost $100,000 in today's money. But now you can get them between, I'd say in the 15 to 30s. 15, you're gonna get the bottom of the bucket. You're gonna get the one that has been beat, the one that hasn't had the rod bearings done, the one that needs a clutch SMG service. You're gonna find one of those, so you gotta get one of these before the prices start going up, because now to get a clean LCI model that's 2008 and up, you're looking at almost 30 grand, okay? 3 years ago, these were bottoming out around 12. You can find these on Marketplace right now. I'd say most of them are in the 20s, but people are starting to realize how special these are and how much of a unicorn they are. 4-door V10, 200 miles an hour. They're never gonna make it again. Similar things can be said about the M6, but as I do more and more research, I understand that just the market is just too small for a 2-door compared to a 4-door. But let's look under the hood and see that glorious S85 V10. Gorgeous. Chris has kept this very clean. Another thing that's different about the regular 5 Series versus the M5 is they actually needed to relocate the engine mounts to move the engine further back. As you can tell, it's mounted right over the front axle, like 50-50 each side, right? If it was a V8 motor, a bigger percentage of the motor would be in front of the front axle as opposed to the V10 motor. This is the S85 V10, a 90-degree V, 507 horsepower, 393 pound-feet of torque, 10 individual throttle bodies, 2 different plenums, 2 different air boxes. This thing's a beast, man. As I said before, major problems include the rod bearings, the throttle body actuators, and the Vano system. Any part of the Vano system, if it goes wrong, it's a high pressure system, so you're gonna have oil going everywhere. Rod bearings, you guys already know. The rod bearings, if those break, you're sending a hole in your block. You got to get a whole new engine. Throttle body actuators are fine because it just regulates just how the throttle body opens and closes. If they don't work, your car just won't run right, but you won't have a major repair on your hands, you know, besides the part itself. One thing about this car is that it is stock and you can tell the difference. My M6 has the carbon filter delete and the block off plates, as well as the RPI scoops, as well as the ESS tune. And all that together just gives it so much more punch in the mid-range. It just feels like this car is just starving for air when you're trying to drive it. Once you get up to the high RPMs, it starts to sing, but from like 3 to 6, it's choking. This car was also BMW's first car to feature a quasi dry sump system. So it's not a complete dry sump system where the oil is completely located separate from the connecting rods and whatnot underneath. It has a shallow oil pan where it actually has pumps, 3 pumps in total, that pump oil from the reserve into the shallow oil pan and out again. Another thing, if you're looking to get one of these S85 V10s, I highly recommend you change the oil to 5W50 red line, and you change the thermostat to a Viper one, simply because it gives you better gas mileage, it burns less oil, and it makes the engine run a little bit more freely because the oil is just that much thinner. This car is special because of its engine, but not just because of its engine. It's special because of its dual personality. It's able to be sedate, calm, refined daily driver, and as soon as you hit that power button, it takes off and becomes a whole different beast. Cars nowadays are really focused on the sport, and I get it. That's what sells. That's what people want. Us, we're like the consumer base. My age, we're upcoming. We love sport. We love doing things fast. You know, we get the sports cars. That's what sells. But comfort is really what driving is about. You want to be comfortable. You want to enjoy the drive. This car is way softer than the series that came after, the F10. It's plush. Even with the dampers completely on the hardest setting, they're fine. It's firm, but it's not rock hard like cars are today. What adds to that comfort is the fact that this car came with electronic dampening control, which is BMW calls it EDC, electronic dampening control. but it allows you to change between the settings of the dampers and the steering with the push of a button. You get 3 settings. You get comfort, normal, sport, or comfort, sport, track. I don't think you take this to the track really. It's not the best track car, but you get what I mean. 3 settings. No other car offered a V10 in 4-door form. The only car that did was the Audi S6, but that didn't rev like this, and it didn't have the same presence or character with it. It was just kind of just a faster V8. It was low and rumbly and torquey. It didn't rev like a bike like this one. Moving on to the interior of the M5, you'll see first that this is a black interior version. This car has the black seats with the aluminum trim, and if I could say so myself, this is the best interior trim you can get. A lot of M5s came in with a beige. You get this in wood. You get this in a flat color like a black, but black leather with the brushed aluminum is just the best spec of interior, especially with Interlagos blue. Starting over by the driver's seat, we got this thick M steering wheel, characteristic of all M's. Very heavily bolstered with the M stitching going around the inner circle. You got your SMG shifters, painted to look like metal, but they're actually made out of plastic. Ask me how I know, I broke mine. Shifted too hard. Then you'll see the classic mid-2000s BMW E-Series gauges. Most popular in the 3 Series, but they're in almost every series from 2006 to like 2014, almost 2012. Left-hand side, you'll see the speed and the fuel in the bottom. Right-hand side, you got the tach and the oil temp in the bottom. Classic gauge setup, that's all you really need. And you got a little screen in the middle for whatever your car wants to tell you about everything else that's going on. Which there is a lot, by the way. This car has a lot of settings. It has a total of 11 shift settings between auto and manual. So you got 6 manual settings and 5 auto settings. You can control the dampening. You can control whether the stability control is off. You can put it in power mode. There are so many different ways you can configure the system. It is unbelievable, especially for a 2006. A lot of people say the SMG transmission is the downfall of the platform, and while they are not completely wrong, I have to say that this SMG transmission is fun to drive. It is actually a joy to drive. It's a joy working with the computer to change gears. Nowadays, the computer makes all the decisions for you, right? You just hit the button, it's in the next gear. It matches revs for you, it does everything. But in this, you still have to rev match with your foot when you're changing gears, just like a manual. It's like you're telling the computer what to do just by the modulations of the pedal. And I think that's pretty cool. Now, as you can see, this car has iDrive. This is 2006, so it had the old iDrive. Plain silver knob right here. But this iDrive, characteristic of all BMWs from the mid-2000s. It was a step ahead of its time at the time, but now it really shows its age. One of the things that's most annoying about this car and my M6 is that the climate controls are split between digital and manual. You got the temperature and fan speed down here. You control the AC and you know, whether you want to defrost or not. But if you want to control what direction the air actually comes out of, you gotta go into the main menu, and you gotta go, first of all, you gotta click this to the left. You got an iDrive of this era is slow, okay? So this takes at least 20 seconds to do if you want to change the direction of the air. You change the direction by going into the climate section and then adjusting the different portions depending on what you want. Also, what's weird, I always talk about this with BMW, but you can control like the temperature mood. I don't even know how to describe it, but you can control what you want the temperature like feel to be. So if you want it to be warm but your AC is on, but you want the warm air to come out, you can do that. Or if you want cold air to come out when your heat's on, you can do that. BMW covers it all. As you can see, DVD-based nav system. They didn't offer the CIC system until 2010. Got ashtray and charger, stows away nicely. You got your heated seat controls as well as your parking sensor and your TPMS reset. But what is special about this car is it is equipped with the side bolsters that move when you turn. If you turn these on, when you turn the wheel of the car, it will bolster up the opposite side to give you more support when you're going around the turns. When you turn left, you lean to the right, so it'll support you more on the right. And it's funny because you can tell it's a gimmick because it doesn't work that well, because it has like a half-second delay with the turn. You turn, and then it punches you in the side. You'll see later when I drive. But center console with this weird phone cubby thing in the middle. Not really sure what this plan was back in the day when this came out, but it takes up a lot of space. One more thing, I know you guys are wondering, where are the cup holders? And that is a good question. They are located here and here. So, typical of all BMWs of this time, we got some wonky cup holders. These ones are similar to the 3 Series in which they come out of the dash. So there we go. Same complaint as I had before with the M3. The cups are above your legs, so if anything goes wrong, it spills all over your legs. Same with the driver, except it points out to the driver. It cleverly warns you not to put a wine glass in here. So don't do that. Other than that, we got this suede headliner. It's black, very nice. This car does have a sunroof. Good size, solid feeling door. But let's move on to the back seat. Moving on to the back seat, as you can tell, it really doesn't have a lot of space when compared to today's standards. And for someone of my height, I don't have the most room back here. This seat is set to where I would sit in the front, so it gives a little bit of slack because I sit really far back, but it's overall not too bad back here. You have a couple of amenities. You have temperature. As I said before, with these cars, you can control the feel of the temperature in the climate control, but back here you have your own temperature gauge, which I believe is the same type of concept, but a physical knob like in a E90. You also have 2 cigarette lighter charger ports, pockets in the back of both seats. You got this, I don't know what this is, a speaker system or a vent system, some sort of speaker vent thing with your lights. Nice reading lights back here, nicely placed. And finally, we got the armrest, which comes down and has a storage pocket for, I don't know, like a book. I'm not sure what would fit back here. This also has a pass-through to the trunk. This car is also equipped with the shades. As you can tell, I got them all up, including an automatic one that goes across the rear window. Overall, the space in this car is pretty good. It's a 5 Series from 15 years ago, and it doesn't really show its age at all. It feels like a modern car in terms of the way the doors close, in terms of the way it rides. It's a very refined, comfortable car to drive. One more thing about this interior are the seats. These seats have so many ways of reclining. It's insane. You got the up and down, forward, backwards of the bottom piece. You got recline, front and back, right? But you can also control the top half of the seat. Unique to the 5 Series, these seats would have been amazing in the M6. I'm not sure as to why they didn't do it, but they should have. As you can see, this car is a huge trunk. It's a very good size for this class of car. Definitely bigger than the M6. But that's enough of me walking around the car. Let's get in it and see how it drives. It's so nice to see a clean dash on something as special as this S85 M5. Not a single light. Beautiful. So what is it like to drive the E60 M5? Well, as you guys already know, I have an M6, so I'm used to the platform, but my M6 has way more miles than this car. This is a prime example of what's going to be collectible in the future. We got a low mile Interlagos blue example, and when I say low mile, 45,000 miles is so low for one of these. Even compared to my M6, this is much smoother. The clutch engages much better than my M6, which makes me believe that maybe mine's on the way out, or maybe the SMG pump needs some work. But this just is so smooth. Anyone who hates on the SMG pump needs to drive this exact car, because this is one of the smoothest cars I've driven, period, regardless if it's an auto or SMG. Now, what made the M5 so special was the fact that not only did it have this high-rating V10, was that it was super comfortable. And when I'm driving around town like this, I can tell you that it is very comfortable. This car with its EDC system just floats over bumps. Even in its stiffest setting, this car is just really soft. It was never meant to be a hard track-focused car. I believe it weighs in at around 4,100 pounds, so it's not light either. You guys probably can't even hear the car, that's how quiet it is. But one thing I noticed right off the bat is how much of a difference doing block off plates, carbon filter delete, RPI scoops, and a tune does. This car feels completely different than my car. My car feels like it's on the edge, it's ready to go. This car is much more subdued, much more tame. the shifts are very smooth, not aggressive. Mine kind of jerks it into gear. And in the mid-range, this car is it's like it wants to go. But it doesn't have that mid-range punch that tune gives it. I'm taking turns right now and I feel the side bolster and it's like a half-second delayed. I can feel it, it just punches me in the side, look. There it goes, look, turn. Oh, there it goes, turn. There it goes. What a cool gimmick. Now people, they're not gonna get this car for the transmission speed or its driving dynamics because, to be honest, it handles like a GT car, not a track car. So you're not gonna be taking turns at crazy high G-forces, maybe high speeds, but you're not getting high G-forces in this car at all. All right, let's try this gear shift. We're only gonna do one of those because I really don't want to put that much stress on this car. These things, man, they just keep hitting me in the side. So people say that one of the biggest downfalls of this car is the steering, and they're not wrong. The steering is very numb. There's not much feel on center, and you can't really feel the road too well through the wheel. Now, I know why they did that. It was because this car is supposed to be comfortable. You don't want an M3 style steering feel in a car that's a Grand Tour. And that's cool and all, but this car is a V10 with a single clutch. So they should have made at least a competition package like they do with the cars now. I know they came out with a competition package in 2010, and that had some cosmetic enhancements as well as maybe a little bit of weight reduction. But if they came out with a real competition package back in the day and improved the steering, this car would easily be 50 grand. But in conclusion, this car is a complete package. It's not only very fast, it's also very comfortable. Unlike most cars today, they're either one or the other. This one does it both. It's really sad that BMW will never make a V10 ever again, but it's for good reason. This car is not economical at all. Throughout this test drive, I've averaged 12.5 miles per gallon. So that alone, coupled with the high maintenance costs of running a 5-liter V10, it's just not practical to do in this day and age, especially with gas prices being expensive they are. The newer M5s, though they're way faster, they're never gonna have as much character as this one. They only rev to about 7.5 as opposed to 8.5. The V8 twin turbos, which means they give a lot of punch down low, but they don't sing like a V10. I want to thank my friend Chris again for letting me borrow his E60 M5. It is by far one of the cleanest examples I've ever seen, let alone driven. It's going to be on Bring a Trailer soon. I'll probably put a link in the description so you can go check it out if you're interested on buying it. It is a 06 first model year with low miles, and it is Interlagos blue with a black interior, so it is a prime spec. Go check it out. But that about wraps up my review of the E60 M5. I really appreciate you staying all the way to the end of the video to watch it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with a friend so I can get more opportunities to review more cool cars for you guys. But other than that, y'all be easy. Have a good one.